Of all the things government does, one of the simplest should be working with and buying from the private sector. But working with government is anything but simple. It's something our next guest knows well. His aerospace firm bid on a contract that depended on a quick answer from a government agency. Quick didn't happen, and Shimco lost the bid. Peter Voss is CEO of Shimco. Great to have you with us, Peter.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So this, of course, is a story with a happy ending because in the end, better things happened for your company. But you've done enough work, and the aerospace industry, of course, is such a heavily government-influenced and regulated industry that we wanted your perspective on how hard is it, and could it be, are there easy things you think could change to make it easier to do business with, contract to, or get approvals from the government?
Well, we find that the government agencies, once the approvals happen for loans or grants, it seems to work well. The issue is getting that approval in the first place. So, you have to basically plan 12 to 18 months ahead of time before you need the money in the application process. So it's very, very cumbersome up to the approval point. But after that, it does seem to work well.
And so in your experience, there are these kind of long delays. Can you plan for that? And if you could get in there, are there things you would change to speed it up? Or is that just kind of the nature of it? Would it take that long in the private sector, in other words?
The private sector, not so much. We work with our bank quite well. We can get approvals within 2 to 3 months at the most. It just depends, I think, on the urgency and the critical nature of what has to get approved and the amount. Right? There's always seems to be a focus on job creation and more lately on innovation and on the ESG factors. So you kind of have to know the buzzwords and what they're really looking for in the applications to make sure your application stays at the top of the pile.
Which makes it sound a little bit like there's always sort of a political element, a public optics element to this. How much, governments talk a lot about reducing red tape. You're talking about, making sure the right buzzwords are in there. Is there a lot of red tape in your way, or is there unnecessary paperwork and rules and regulations that could be simplified to make the business world better?
It's been pretty good. It actually has got better in the last couple of years. It seems that sort of post-pandemic, that there has been a focus on that, especially at the provincial level. Sometimes the applications are quite lengthy. It can take you a few days of writing just to get everything put together. But it does seem to have improved over the last 24 months.
So is there anything you would change if you could get in there and kind of stroke a pen and make key changes? What would they be to improve the relationship between the business community and government?
It's just the speed of the applications. Like you mentioned at the start, we had a big opportunity in front of us, and it would have tripled the company almost overnight. And that just doesn't happen in government. We're quite nimble, but everybody has to cross their T's and dot their I's. It's always a bit of make sure your tracks are covered, and that you don't get in trouble. And that does slow down the process for us. So it is hard to make decisions quickly. Yep. When we rely on funding from the government.
Peter, so good to have your perspective. Appreciate your time today.
Okay, thank you.
Peter Voss is the CEO of Shimco. Time for the takeaway and a future problem we should tackle now. When it comes to the size of government, there is more than an ideological argument at stake. Along with wanting to get the best return on our tax dollars and optimize the role the public sector plays in the economy, the public sector also represents a subset of employment that is the envy of many. Government jobs pay on average 9% more than the private sector, and even more important, are way more likely to have a good pension attached. In fact, 88% of government workers have a pension compared with 23% of private sector employees. And those that do have a pension are much more likely to have the more guaranteed defined benefit plan if they work in government. We're not here to quibble about public employees' rights to good benefits, but it's hard not to see a growing divide between those with a secure retirement and those without. As our population ages, it's a problem that will matter to us all as we make sure those government pensions are fully funded. They have to meet the obligations to plan members, even as the number of retirees swells. And when we say they, it means we have to meet those obligations. These are taxpayer-funded promises, so the private sector employee has to share the burden of a benefit they don't get a share in. That may be fine when everything is rosy and plans are fully funded by existing employees. But as more and more non-government workers retire, it will become more and more clear what the gap means. For some, it could be the difference between a comfortable retirement and one that doesn't quite add up to security and peace. One solution to this problem is to encourage more private sector companies to make a good pension part of the benefits plan for employees. But that doesn't help much smaller businesses, which can't afford that kind of perk. It could be that governments and taxpayers will have to find a way to support those private sector employees better. My takeaway? How to equalize retirement benefits between government and non-government employees may feel like a future problem, but it's one we have to start talking about now. That's Taking Stock for this week. I'm Amanda Lang. Thanks for being with us.